Steering head bearings aren't something you really give a whole lot of thought to. And what are steering head bearings? Well, there's the bearings that allow the whole front end to steer. Essentially, the entire weight of the bike on the front end is held in place by two tiny little bearings, and those bearings have to also let the steering turn smoothly from left to right. Where are the bearings? Right up inside the triple tree here. If you look at the steering head, I'll turn the handlebars here, and you'll see at the very top, there's the triple tree here, goes into the frame, and where those two meet, there's a set of bearings. And at the bottom as well, you see the bottom of the triple tree right there, and the bottom of the frame, and where those two meet, there's another bearing down there. And those two bearings are responsible for holding the whole front end of the bike up and for steering the bike. So what I've done, this is my wife's Pacific Coast. It's in a, I'm kind of tearing it apart. So you may say to yourself, so what if the bearings are a little bit worn? What does that matter? Well, it actually does matter. You may not feel it when you're riding. However, it will affect itself in very rapidly worn tires, cupped tires, and more importantly, you could get speed wobbles or other dangerous movements of the bike that you aren't expecting. So how do we check for it? Well, first thing we do is we put the bike up on the center stand, and as you can see, I've used a little trolley jack just to gently lift the frame of the bike, just enough to get the wheel maybe a ½ inch off the ground, so it'll turn from side to side without contacting the ground. We want it to be able to turn freely. The first thing you want to do is check for lateral play. If you push the wheel from side to side and you feel some kind of looseness, then either the bearings are loose or they're worn. In this case, you can see a little movements because I'm moving the entire bike, but they're fairly tight. The secondly is longitudinal play. You want to push the front wheel forward and back. This is normally where looseness will show up. So if you are pushing it forward and back and you feel a little bit of a click in there, the bearings are either worn or loose. There's one real giveaway we can check for worn steering bearings, and we can do that standing up. The steering should move smoothly from one side to the other. That's not what's happening on this bike because the bearings on this bike are shot. As you can see, if I push it, it actually has a detent right when the wheel is straight ahead. If I push it this way, you can see. And that may not be so easy to see, but I tell you, you can feel it when I turn it. It's definitely right there. As you can see, that should not be happening. If I push it one way, it should just keep going all the way over to the one side or the other. It should not be stopping and rocking back and forth in the center there. That's because the bearings are worn from many, many miles of going straight ahead. This is a particularly heavy bike, so the bearings will wear after a time. So, the bearings in this bike need to be changed. That's steering bearings. I have another DIY article on GoldwingDocs.com that shows exactly how to go about changing the steering bearings on the Goldwing, and in fact this is the 1500 Goldwing that I used for that DIY, so you'll see pictures of that bike all taken apart in that DIY. If you have any questions, feel free to post on the board. Again, that's GoldwingDocs. You'll see it right at the very bottom of the screen.